And welcome to Rainbows and Razor Blades Productions, where chaos reigns in all of our content. I am Kristen, and with me I have you.
You?
I'm trying to throw it to you, Kat.
Oh, you're trying to throw it to me. Okay, that was an awkward transition. This is what I get for not writing a script. The word salad has already started. I'm Kat, also known as Autumn Knox on Twitter and everywhere else. I'm your producer and occasionally on-screen personality. Tonight's show is Chaos Commentary. It's usually two TTRPGers, one that's pretty experienced, that's Kristen, and then one less experienced, that's me, until these last 5 months. And we'll talk about tabletop role-playing from our perspectives, and sometimes we are awesomely graced with a guest. Tonight, it is Don, otherwise known as Friend Don in certain spaces.
Thanks, Ed.
He's come to talk some TTRPG stuff. He is very experienced in a great many things. He gave me a laundry list the other day, and I just eventually got to the bottom. I'm like, I can't even remember what all I read. So, Don, why don't you tell us what you are up to right now?
You can find me at Don Von Dolan at Twitch, Twitter, everywhere. It's either at Don Von Dolan or at D Von Dolan. I don't remember. It's one of those two. Anywhere, everywhere. I currently run a stream on Roll the Roll, twitch.tv/Roll the Roll, called Dampiers. We run once a month, and we play Pathfinder 2. We play it in a way that is not necessarily rules as written, because I'm kind of loosey-goosey with some stuff, more than I would be in other situations. I also guest spot on other things like here for Cyberpunk Red, at least once so far, hopefully more, if they don't kill me.
Obscure is going to kill you at some point, or Logo. One of us is going to
And eventually I'll also be guesting over on Exquisite Corpse Presents whenever I find out what my character might actually be.
Nice.
There's much plotting and planning over there.
There's much plotting and planning everywhere. We're like doing all sorts of things. So you've been a player for a long time, like you were telling me, like about 96 is when you started GMing.
Yep. 96 is also when I started playing.
Oh, okay, so all in the same year. Nice.
Yep. Now, I started playing because a friend of mine in the Marine Corps was going out to his truck with another friend of mine. And I said, "Where are y'all going?" They're like, "We're going to play D&D." I'm like, "Really? I'm bored and broke. Can I come?"
That's, someone else has got the books. That's a good way to start.
Yeah, I had, throughout high school and everything, I never heard like it was the devil's thing or anything like that. My parents were very big Lord of the Rings nerds. They went to Lord of the Rings cosplay parties back in the 70s.
Wow.
But we watched Doctor Who from like black and white to color transition together, all the different nerd things you can do as a family, except they never played any games like that. The only games we played were like Scrabble and Trivial Pursuit. So it wasn't like family game night for us was not anything more than, it was still nerdy, but it wasn't that kind of nerdy. So didn't have a chance to play until I got in the Marine Corps. Never saw it, never heard, never had anybody play.
Nice. I think I started playing, like I was introduced to D&D in the early 90s. My high school boyfriend played with these stoner guys, and they're super nice guys. And I went over there and smoked some pot, and they tried to like play. They didn't really ask me to play because girl. And basically it was like, I don't even remember who was playing what. All I remember is it was like watching Dude, Where's My Car? Because every other word from those two guys was dude. So I actually didn't play until a homebrew, maybe a couple years later. It's like 95, 96, so about the same time, actually. It was the first time I started playing.
I was introduced to TTRPGs in, I want to say around 2000, by my psychopathic cousin. So that was fun. Mage was the first thing I ever tried, and my dad and stepmom watched us getting all set up, and we got like 5 minutes into it, and they're like, "Nope, this is about the devil. You can't play it."
Yes, we're gonna summon demons.
Yep. I mean, he also was a witch, and he didn't tell them that, but
No, my first GMing experience was just everybody was together. We were at the USO. It was a 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. game, and the GM lost his voice, and he's like, "So who's next?" And that's when I started running a game. I'm like, I can run a game. I've been reading the books and do this. I'd spent all of my money on these books and dice. Because in the Marine Corps, it was literally all of your money. You didn't get paid much. So it's
The
like,
one book could be your whole damn paycheck. Those things were not cheap in the 90s.
no. And like, there was only like one game store in the entire town. It was in the mall. So everything was overpriced.
Oh, yeah.
But like my first dice set was in the box for the Rogue, the gray plastic Tupperware box that came with Rogue sheets for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Second Edition, and a set of different colored dice, and none of them matched. But I knew what the set was because it was the only one I had at the time. But yeah, and growing and learning from there. But I mean, the same group of guys were the guys I wrote an RPG with that we never published.
That's
So
cool,
it was, we wrote it, it was like kind of like that parallel thought process going on. We stole too much from other people, so we knew we were never going to publish it, but then suddenly 3.0 came out and we're like, wait, those are half of our ideas.
that's obnoxious when stuff like that happens, but now it's like, everybody makes home brews, and people, all sorts of people are making their own games. We're making our own game. It's it's a lot different now than
Yeah,
in the
back in
90s.
the second edition days, everything was custom. I mean, you could play a module, but most people didn't, from what I could gather, because I mean, you didn't really have the internet to go and find folk. So I knew the people who I played with.
Yeah, it was always in person. Like the group that I actually played D&D with the first time were friends. Like it was like my high school boyfriend and some of our friends, and one of them had done a homebrew thing that was built around D&D with a Star Wars bent, so it was more in like a futuristic kind of thing. And we went around doing that. We had this dead poodle on a leash that we used as a decoy. We would slap him out to see if anything shot at us, and then keep him. And at the end of the game, I shot the owner in the back to take the dead dog because I wanted the dog. So.
The first actual D&D game I played, that was in college. I don't remember much about it because there was so much personal drama that people had going on that I'm pretty sure we only ever made it about an hour into any of our sessions before yelling started and people started fighting.
Oh, that's not good.
For me, like, it was branching out from there. Though I mean, you gotta, like, your first game is almost always, for most role players, D&D. I know of couple where it's not, where their first one was maybe something very obscure, like a slap book of GURPS for one of my friends who just joined the chat just like seconds ago. So I saw her name pop up, so I had to call her out. But most people, their first experience with TTRPGs is the big name, Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yeah.
Or as some people are starting to call it, that dragon game.
Game that shall not be named.
But I quickly branched out into like Cyberpunk and BattleTech and MechWarrior, and I never wanted to play games like Vampire because all the people that I ever saw playing Vampire were really weird.
Oh, you mean the LARPing people? Because some of them are some of them are all right. I knew some people that actually were fairly normal that LARPed. Actually, this girl that when I used to go to church when I was a teenager, and I would do like youth group trips to get away from my parents, she was in that youth group. And then later on, she was a LARPer in the local scene here. I was like, okay.
But yeah, no. So my first
pipeline from youth group to gaming, honestly, is pretty short.
It's an easy leap for some people. She's still pretty Christian. I'm pretty sure she still even attends our old church. So she just is a little bit more cool with certain things. But
there's nothing wrong with being a Christian in gaming.
No.
There is something wrong with being judgmental in gaming. I don't care what your bent is.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a distinction there for sure. So
yeah, so I mean, I personally, like, I'm not gonna Bible thump appeal, but I'm a Christian in gaming, so just but I don't throw that out at people ever. Like, Kat and I've had long conversations about it today.
That's true. Yeah, that was earlier this morning. That was a deep conversation for like what 7 o'clock in the morning or whatever the hell it was.
Exactly. It was like, so my thing,
You're one of the ones that's all like, yeah, this is who I am, but I'm not going to push it on you. Unlike the ones that are all like, this is like a dude's cock. I'm going to try and shove it down your throat.
Yeah, it's
no. So for me, the whole thing about it is can I justify what I'm doing? Like what game I'm playing, how I'm acting with what I consider my faith. And that's easy to do for me because there's only one rule. And it's kind of like he said, be cool. So you just be cool. But for me, like when I branched out into other things, like I never wanted to play VTM, and then I got bait and switched into VTM Dark Ages because I went for D&D, showed up with my D&D books and my dice, and they said, "Hey, we're playing Vampire." I'm like, "Hey, I'm gonna go home," but I didn't drive, so I couldn't leave. So I played some Dark Ages. It wasn't really a great experience, but it opened my eyes to other gaming systems, and that's one thing that I think that people really, especially if you've watched the Twitter controversies lately, need to notice is no one system is going to solve all your problems. No system is going to be the best. No system is going to be the worst. But if you are wanting something different, try something different. Be open to new ideas and concepts. They're not all that dragon game.
Yeah, they're not all built like that at all. Like we talked about in another stream, I played D&D. Like D&D is actually my least played game. So after that game that I played with my friends and the Dead Dog, we only played that for a few weeks, maybe a couple months max. I think it was maybe 2. And then I played Vampire, and then Immortal, which is an obscure game for those that don't know, you know, and some other stuff. But I've played other games way more than D&D, and I look back at D&D now with some of the other games I've played, and for some people, they turn away from it like pretty quick because it's not as accessible in terms of learning for some folks because it's so like there's so many things to learn right off the bat, and some people don't want to do that, you know. There's like stats and math and descriptions, and even with D&D Beyond, I was super lost when we first were playing, like her first game that Kristen DM'd, and then her first iteration of Artena. You know, I was still like stumbling around D&D Beyond. You know, like I've gotten way better at it over the last, you know, couple years, but man, you know, it was still rough. And I had played all these other systems, and to me, it has like a higher point of entry for people sometimes.
So my thing is when I'm running, go ahead.
It's definitely one of those things where even with D&D Beyond, like it's handy to be able to look and be like, okay, this is what this does. But there's still a lot of things, like especially when I'm looking at a monster stat block and it doesn't exactly tell me all the little pieces, then I have to go look it up. And I'm like, there's so many spells. Like there's some DMs that can totally go off of it and be like, all right, I'm pretty sure this is what this says, you know, and just go past it. I'm all like, I need a second.
So for me, what I recommend for people who are new is either you sit down and go through a step-by-step character creation with a person who has experience. Like you were learning, okay, you're going to roll a stat or, you know, assign a stat, however you apply your statistics, either rolling, assigning, boosting, whatever method is for the system. And you assign your stat, and I'm going to explain what that stat does. And we're going to go to the next one. And we're going to go to the next one. And we're going to build your character sheet one step at a time. And all I expect you to know, like if Kristen was coming to my game as a new player, all I would expect Kristen to know is, how do I play my character? I don't expect her to know everything behind the screen. All I need you to know is, how do you play your character? What are the things that your character can do? And that's all I can ever expect from any player.
So we kind of did that to an extent because if anybody has not, you know, been on our stream before or knows me at all or has heard me talk about it, I am a very, very busy person. I am always doing something. I have some shit going on. So when we were playing our games at home and we did like, I think we did like a couple one-shots too and stuff like that. I was like, look, I don't have time to build a character. So
I can build a character in 5 seconds.
Yeah, I built my first one for our first game, and then the second game for Artena, and then our one-shots, she built them because I was so damn busy. I was like, just make a character, tell me about her, and then I will go. And that's kind of, you know, how we had to do it. And that was cool though, because then I didn't have to get the headache of character creation. I could just sit down like, okay, this is this, this is this, this is this. And I actually got to know my character a little bit better. And then the ancillary mechanics like spell casting or moves, like one of mine wasn't even a spell caster. She was like the tabaxi monk.
I think I got you 2 or 3 of them that were monks because I'm just like, cat is a monk.
Yeah, no, my favorite one of those was the tabaxi monk, bite marks. So
Yeah,
Um,
like what I did when one of our streams, we were going through so many different systems so quickly. It was a lot of character creation all at once because we were like 4 episodes, new system, 4 episodes, new system. One of the systems was Star Wars Saga, which has a lot of books. I'm a nerd and I've already played a little bit of Saga. And so I looked at all the guys who were playing, except for one who was like, I'm going to build my own character. I'm like, you do you, man. Enjoy. And for me, it was like, we had 2 other players with us, and both of them like, we're not reading all these books. We're just not going to do it. One was like, I don't even like Star Wars.
that kind of makes it a little more difficult. So how did
But
that
she's like,
work out?
she loved the game we played, but she's not a big Star Wars fan. She's a Star Trek fan, which is
Okay.
fine. Again, to each their own.
I mean, I like both. So
Yep.
Yeah. But, you know, for me, it was like, okay, what kind of character do you want to play? I'll build it. Because I had a spreadsheet. I just made everybody's character. I even leveled up for them. You know, I was like, I'll handle all of it for you. You don't need to learn the system. You're never going to play it again.
right. That's,
What's the point of muddling it in your brain?
no, I mean, I like learning about the different systems and the different aspects. Just some have an easier point of entry to learn them than others, you know.
I would say anything that's powered by the apocalypse, super easy entry barrier for entry because you have like, here's your things you can do.
Well, like
That's
the
it.
Free League stuff too is easy. So, like,
Yeah, and like Honey Heist and stuff like that.
yeah, we played Alien, and that was super easy. I have Blade Runner because I backed the Kickstarter, and I was looking through the book, and it's just like Alien and the mechanics, so it's like super easy. I was like, oh, okay, I could run this. This is not bad, you know.
Yeah.
I'm still not confident I could run a D&D game and be effective outside of the story portion. Like the story part I could probably do, but the mechanics and stuff I'd still be like, somebody help me.
So as I've learned from being a GM who didn't know any of the mechanics when I started, like I've read the books, but I didn't know how they all interacted. You know, it's like I didn't know like what's like for 2nd edition, it wasn't the same thing, but you know, how to build an encounter. I didn't understand it. I'm like, you guys can fight a dragon. They're like, we're 3rd level. No, we can't.
I lucked out in that I didn't start until about 5 years ago doing the DMing, and so I had Google.
Yeah.
Google was my friend. But it's definitely very intensive, and especially if you don't know all the little bits and pieces. If you run a game where half your players are DMs themselves,
yeah, that was a good time.
So
So-
for me, my thought is you have someone at the table other than the GM who might not know all the rules, because that's what we kind of did. Is the guy who had lost his voice was kind of like, if I have a question about how a rule works, I'm going to ask him. I'm not going to ask all of you. You all have GM'd. All of you have ideas on how the rules should be adjudicated. I'm going to ask one player. If he doesn't have an answer for me, I will spend 5 minutes looking up. If I can't find it in 5 minutes, time to move on. We'll throw out a ruling. If I'm wrong, we'll figure it out later. But I don't want to waste our 1 day a week of gaming complaining about the rules.
See, my postulation with that kind of thing is, and even before I even like considered running a game, because I've only run the one, but is that because a lot of people, you know, and she got frustrated with that at first too, because players will fuck up your story and they won't necessarily follow the rules, and it's like, well, they don't know your plans and they probably aren't as clear on the rules, and you know what, if you get stuck or they don't do what you want to do, make shit up, you know. Just
well, and see, my problem wasn't that people didn't know the rules. My problem was that they all knew rules but had how they ran it, and then I would get messages of, oh hey, well you should have done this, and I'm all like, no, I did it my way, fuck off.
yeah, well, no, and that's true too. You had the side seat DMs over there, so, and then mine is more of the perspective of like people like me who wouldn't like necessarily know, you know, as much as, you know, you or Don here or some of the other people that we played with, is more of, you know, well, I'm not sure how that mechanic works, but the way you said it sounds really cool, so roll for that and see if it succeeds. You know?
Right.
And
Sometimes it has to
well,
be
see,
fluid.
one thing I've learned with like, especially with like 5th edition players and have grown up through D&D from like I did from 2nd edition on, or even from older editions on in some cases. The edition bleed is real, so they might get some rules wrong. And 5e having grown how it has and being as DM adjudicated as it is, it's very much GM specific. Like Kristen might have a set of house rules that she always like, grapple works this way in my games, and it always works this way in my games because that's how I always rule it. Well, Dawn's running today. Grapple doesn't work that way anymore.
Oh yeah, no, it's any new, especially on stream, I'll be like, all right, these are the couple of house rules that I play with. Otherwise, there's gonna be some shit that's made up on the spot because none of us know what's going on.
And that's one of the reasons why I enjoyed when I left 5e and joined Pathfinder 2 is because Pathfinder 2 is the players are responsible for knowing what their characters can do. Anything I have to adjudicate is generally there's already a rule written down for it. I just have to find it and read it. It's not like I have to make it. I don't know how that lock works. Let me make it up on the fly. Now I can just go, okay, standard lock, first level. It's a DC 10. You don't even have to roll. It works. You know, and that's one of the things I really enjoyed about that system. And it's freeing because you have rules, whereas 5e is freeing because you don't necessarily have all the rules.
Once they started coming out with stuff like Tasha's, where it's all like, oh, you can change stuff if you want to. You don't have to. Like, I think they saw how much homebrew was being done, and they're like, no, we're gonna lean into it and be like, nah, if you want to make shit do it other ways, go for it.
Which I think is cool because I've always, been of the mind that, sometimes you need to just make your own way to make the story your own and let people, come up with cool new things, because that also feeds into the RP side of it. Because if you're enjoying it and you're really like building that character with some depth and whatnot, you're gonna maybe come up with something new, like a new skill or a new way of going about something too. So
my other thing is what I called that when I, pardon my throat here, when I was running GURPS at conventions. I don't like GURPS is a super crunchy system and people get very scared of it because there's a lot of numbers.
there are
Early on, lots of numbers. When you're building a character, they're like, you have 125 points. You can take 50 points of disadvantages, which add to your point total, and 25 points worth of quirks, which also add to your point total. And then you have to do all that math and then tell me what your character looks like. And then you have to remember what your dice rolling system is because it's not D&D. It doesn't use a D20. Enjoy. But when I was building it at the table, I would hand people character sheets. Here you go. These are pre-gen randomly from a generator. If it's funny, roll it. If you don't like it, don't read it. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I play GURPS differently than everybody else on the planet, I think, besides maybe Steve himself. But when I play it, it's world building at the table. Is how I described that GM style. Was like, how do you want magic to work today? They're like, what? I'm like, what do you think you need to cast a spell today? They're like, well, magic circles work. I'm like, fine, magic is done with circles. They're like, what, you're gonna let that happen? I'm like, is the table okay with it? The table's okay with it. That's how it works.
I'm the DM, so I'm saying it's okay, so let's do this thing. It's I feel like it just the rules are great and they give you structure so you understand how the flow of the game is supposed to go, but sometimes you need to have that ability to be fluid and just go off on your own and do your thing.
Yeah, but the thing is once I established that rule, once we established that was how it worked, that was how it worked. Mm-hmm. It wasn't Calvin ball with it. We didn't go like, well, it's circles for this person, but squares for this person and triangles for that one. No, we've decided that magic is done with circles. That is how magic is done now. Enjoy. Now, we did not limit how big the circles had to be. One of the girls was stuck driving her car, couldn't take her hands off the wheels for some reason or another. I can't remember. It was story based. And she's like, how am I going to cast my magic if I can't get to a circle? I'm like, what are you holding on to? She's like, oh, wait, I'm literally holding a circle.
One of the games I'm super looking forward to run is Over the Edge, where it's almost completely open character creation and story creation, and then you throw in aliens, conspiracy theories, and all that fun stuff. So I think that would be a really fun system, especially for somebody like Kat, who's only run one game in one system, where it's something that it's more story based and less mechanics based for them to run, and it's more accessible.
Yeah, for sure. Like even with Viking Death Squad, like it's not super stat heavy, so it was pretty easy. And like that whole thing, like I took one of the pre-gen adventures at the back. So to keep myself like on track because of the time, the way I did it for that particular thing was I had a script. It's kind of funny. I had a script. And it wasn't tight, and it wasn't to like, something I forced my characters into, but I had
You
the
give him a
whole
tight 5.
no. No, actually I had the whole thing written out, and then I had like an alternate adventure that I wrote myself if they rolled for Satan, which is what they ended up doing, was the alternate Satan adventure. But, I kept it, real like just okay, let's do this, allow for them to RP, and then kind of try to herd the cats over here if they go here. If not, then we can do this over here. So it was kind of a step by step for me, but that way I could focus on remembering the little mechanic stuff that I had notes on, so I didn't get lost. But these lighter mechanic ones are really cool for me in that way, because it was like, hey, I don't have to remember a whole shitload of stats. I can just build a fucking batshit story and roll a few dice. Like, I think I rolled dice like 3 or 4 times myself, or maybe a few more, but you know what I mean.
I can say one of the most fun games that I've been a part of. I haven't yet to actually run it myself, but a friend of mine runs this pretty regularly. I think she just joined the chat because I just pinged her, letting her know I was about to talk about her. She is at Murphy Pop Art. She's a great artist, one of my favorites. But she also runs Honey Heist.
Mm-hmm.
And Honey Heist, you are playing, if y'all have watched the Critical Role ones that
I haven't
Marisha
actually
runs.
watched the critical ones of the Honey Heist, but I've heard
Yeah,
good.
so basically you play as a bear, and you have 2 stats, bear and crime. If you go too far either direction, you become either full bear or full crime. And each one has its own detriment or benefit, whichever.
Right.
But the whole point of us, and there's pun rules, there's hat rules. Yes, literal hats.
Let us steal that.
But yeah, her Honey Heist GMing is fun. But she is also a person who does not GM a lot and doesn't have all the rules down for all those different systems. So she runs Honey Heist because it's rules light. And those rules light systems can be great entry points also for younger children, for adults who have ADHD or have PTSD or things like that, where they don't process things the same way. So they don't have to. Like GURPS has an ultralight system. It's a super crunchy system until you get the ultralight, which is 1 column of rules that says roll 3d6, pray for low.
And see, I have ADHD too, so sometimes these rules lights are better for me anyway, just because then I can, roll a couple of things and then RP, and that's fine too. I'm getting more accustomed to some of the more crunchier things, and I'm looking through D&D here and there a little more to get to know it a little bit better, because I mean, it is the big game, and just
It's where you get all the audience.
She's got to learn Cyberpunk.
which is not complicated at all.
Cyberpunk's been okay. I'm getting better and better with that, with like the roles and like understanding the net running stuff. So that one actually.
You did pick the hardest class in Cyberpunk to play.
Oh, I did. I printed out the Netrunner portion of the book, and it is 20 pages, plus like 5 or 6 other ones from another section of the book for like stats.
I played Cyberpunk 2020, the original, back in the day. It was one of my second game system I ever played. They actually, because of how complicated net running was, the running joke was, whenever somebody breaks into a net running session, the rest of us get dinner. Because you weren't going to be done in an hour. And they actually, at one point in the late 90s, early 2000s, they spun off and created a net running game, which was just a deck of cards, and you played Netrunner. It was completely just separated from the original Cyberpunk, but it was the same core concept. So the net running thing is complicated as heck. Love Mike Pondsman to death. I understand why it exists in his system, but wow. Does that make it overly complex for everyone else at the table, including the ref?
Yeah, it's not so bad in Red. Like I've seen the 2020 or 2022 manual, whatever the year is. But
2020.
2020. Yeah, I have actually like I think my ex had it or somebody else, and I actually did look through it because Netrunner was interesting to me then too. And I looked at it and I was like, no, thank you. And if we had actually played it, I probably would have been like a solo or something else. But for this, it's like it's really not that bad. Plus, the app that they have for it is fantastic, so that
Oh
helped
yeah,
a lot too.
definitely.
You know, there's a
I
few.
would say that's one of the things best about modern gaming is being able to do most of it from right here. I can
Yeah.
do almost everything
Mhm.
from right here on my phone. And I don't have to, like, I can open Discord, join a chat, have my character sheet open, and roll dice right from my phone. Is it the best experience? No. But it is possible to play
Yeah.
from my phone.
That's true. That's true. You know, yeah, like
Like, I remember being at a convention and I didn't have my character sheet on me, and they said, "Hey, we have an open seat at this table for PFS. Do you want to play?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't have my character." I'm like, "Well, what about a homebrew, or what about not a homebrew, but a pre-gen?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, I don't want one of those horrible characters." So I logged into my Google Drive and downloaded my character sheet to my phone at the time and played from there. And I'm like, "This is horrible," but at least I have a character sheet.
technology is fucking great for that though in some ways too, but sometimes horrible. But like when we play Cyberpunk, I had my tablet sitting here with the app on it, so I just have my character sheet here and I roll my dice right here, and it's great, you know. And then
Yeah.
a lot of the net running stuff is in the app, so I can get like little overviews of how it works. I'm still piecing it together because I've only net run like twice briefly in one of our sessions, so
Yeah, and I'm still learning how to let her net run because I've got the cheat sheets. Like I've read through a bunch of it, but it's so much information. It's in one ear.
What I would suggest, and this is just coming from a person who's played a bunch of Cyberpunk in his life,
Yeah.
start a net running session at the end of a game seat session, like when the game's about to end, be like, and Cat and Obscura Jackson for whatever they're trying to do, and then do like a little one-on-one shot with you and Obscura just playing the game, doing the net running side of it, and then pop back into the next session where she's coming out of the thing, if she's alive or dead, who knows.
surprise.
Because that way the other players at the table aren't completely disassociated from it,
Right.
but at the same time she gets to enjoy all the skills that the netrunner has.
Yeah, because like once she goes in, like I tried to bounce back and forth between what she was doing while net running and what was happening with the other players outside of it. And
which actually, to be honest, was great because it gave me opportunity to kind of look at some of my stuff and figure out what I may or may not need to do with some of the programs I have, because I have some really bitchin' like apps for my cyber deck, you know. And then it made me see that I missed one that I could have used when I was going in at first, because I had like a boost to like the back door and things like that, you know. So switching between the viewpoints of the action actually is good for me because it gives me opportunity to just figure out
Breathe.
what I may need to do, or just to read briefly to get ahead, you know. Or
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what if it's like a big deep one. If it's a short one, I get that. But the big deep dives can take so long. It's like I said, that was one of the things that we learned from the disassociation, was to take it to a one-on-one and let everybody else go do something else, and then come back and then role play what they were doing while the other person's gone.
yeah, that can also be a good like mechanic as well too, is doing
Right.
the off net run. The bouncing back and forth net run too, I thought was pretty cool too, because it's like
Yeah.
the multi-camera show that at that
Yeah,
point,
because like because the next big one that will probably happen is when they take Frink's job to go and do the peer-to-peer against Risk in the casino, and there's going to be guards, and there's going to be other
In
things
that
happening.
in that situation, you kind of have to do it bouncing back and forth, because they might shoot her while she's jacked in. And you can't just plan for that unless you know what happened.
Yep.
But that system is really fun. The other fun one, like in VTM, is that I've really abused lately is premonitions. I love premonitions.
I haven't heard of that one.
It's a trait. It's one of the aspects. It's a 2 dot aspects power. It's called premonition. It basically gives them visions, and they can rouse and ask for one, or I can just force them to have one for whatever reason I want.
Yeah, that one can be entertaining. I've seen that used on people before. My character's never had it, but I think I only ever played Malkavian and Bruja, and I went with different things. So
Yeah.
I've
And
never gotten to play vampire, so
well, like
I love
I've also run my first Memoriam episode, which was fun. Took them back into early 1920s era Atlantic City that we're in, because I went from being a person who had to be bait and switch to play VTM to someone who runs a who co-runs a VTM server with my best friend. So we play a lot of VTM and we have a blast doing it. But I got to run a memoriam to get back to 1920s era Atlantic City just to see what did Atlantic City look like 70 years ago. And it was a great fun time. Kay Cunningham Chat is the other co-lead for that server. She's my buddy. But we play a lot of games like that. And when you get this, another thing that helps is getting repeat people. Like, I know that for like our mutual friend DK, her games, a lot of them you'll see casts that are that have been in other shows, and it helps because one, the storylines tie together a little bit better, and two, you get to know how someone plays and how what their, not necessarily what their hard lines are, but where their soft lines are, so you know where you're creeping up onto something that might make them have a really good moment.
Oh yeah, no, it was a learning experience. We actually just had this conversation at the end of season 1 where she's like, so I was a really new DM when we jumped into this and really had only run it for, 3 people that I knew really well. And so I didn't know about safety tools, and we kind of dove in the deep end on a whole bunch of heavy shit. So I appreciate you all.
Yeah, you guys went there with some stuff from what you've told me, so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, one thing I've learned is there are lines and veils. There are lines you should not cross with players if they have triggering events, things that really cause them emotional trauma. You should know those things in advance.
We have a whole document that we give to our players that they can tell us what those are so that we know not to cross. And we have, as a channel, some very set in stone ones that we will not cross as a baseline. So we're very big on that on our channel, just because we don't want people to be uncomfortable at our tables. We want people
and
to have
I don't want
time.
people to be uncomfortable watching either.
Yeah.
And so some of my GM rules are because I know that I'm uncomfortable with it, so therefore people watching may be uncomfortable with it. Whereas I could probably push through because I'm hard-headed and stubborn. I don't want someone to have to watch it.
Yeah, we have set things that's like with like sexual assaults and children and things like that. So we're very like we have some like real logical ones and some that like are just like, no, this is a hard line, because for everyone's safety, it's
I have one player who is like, I don't like things with eyeballs. Please don't give me eyeball monsters.
Fair.
Okay, no eyeball monsters for you.
Yeah.
And if their soft line is something like, I don't like tentacles, but please show me tentacles so I can get really messed up on stream.
Some people do like their buttons pushed so they can give a good RP. So
there's some buttons that you can push, but there's some buttons that are like, this is the one that's in glass, and if you push it, the stream ends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's always about finding where that line, where the soft lines versus the hard lines are. Because if you hit your soft lines, you're making a very good, as Kristen likes to say, you build good tension.
Yeah.
Whereas just those hard lines, you don't build tension, you build enemies.
Yeah, you alienate everybody, and that's definitely not what we want. So
thankfully, in the games that I run so far, there haven't been a whole lot of hard lines outside of what we have, and so I have room to play and like don't have to worry so much about crossing those lines. So that's been helpful.
Yeah, it's important to make sure you're cognizant of that, but sometimes it's also good that when you're going to be doing something that could be kind of sketchy, approaching the player before and be like, hey, we're going to go and stream and I may touch on this XYZ theme. Are these things that you may not have thought of that you aren't cool with, or can we RP this one, So sometimes warning somebody in advance when you're going to, maybe push a line a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even with our current Dampier stream, because it is a darker stream, it does touch on some things like, deep into necromancy lore, things like that. So we try to be very careful. I announced at the beginning of the stream, hey, this is a dark theme. It has dark content. We are adults using adult language.
It's like
Please
with
be aware.
Black Dice Society, when he gives the warnings that there might be yelling, it's gonna be dark. There's gonna be shit that goes down you might not like. Be warned.
Yeah, most of
Yeah.
our streams have just a content rating mature on the overlays, just to let people know this is mature content, because we swear on stream. I swear like a fucking sailor. So I mean, I did not want to have to
I
play the
generally do.
censorship
I don't know why I'm
game,
not
so
right now, but I generally do.
yeah. So I'm like, early on, I was like, I don't want to have to censor myself a whole hell of a lot, because it's really hard sometimes, especially like when I'm really into something. So
Yeah.
Yeah, the language has never been that big of a thing, as long as like for the Twitch, you mark it as mature so that they know that, hey, these people are going to use language.
yeah, so that's
Yeah.
what we do. And I don't think we've done anything dark enough to warrant a precursor statement yet, but I mean, I'm sure over
I
the
do
time we
have a
will.
plan. The December one shot where I do 10 candles is gonna need hey, this is gonna get real dark.
That's fine. We can have that moment, but by and large, our content hasn't gotten that dark as of yet. But on a long enough timeline, we'll hit those things. So that's just how it will be.
Yeah, I mean, given enough time and enough monkeys, you're gonna type every letter,
Oh
So
yeah.
it's just a matter of knowing ahead of time. So
Yeah.
but that's one of my big things is I've learned from being a GM who never used something like that, because I just GM for my buddies who were all Marines and didn't have any hard stops that we should have had.
Right.
Yeah.
And finding out that I have a hard stop on some things, like there's one thing that I don't go into in gaming. I don't want to discuss that or have that on my brain.
Mhm.
It's
Right.
so I don't deal with it. So we don't talk
And we
about
have
it.
a caveat in our lines and veil or in our whole thing where we're like, put up a hand or make an X if, there's a trigger you didn't know you had, and all of a sudden it's freaking you out, causing you anxiety. We will stop and we will, skip it, retcon it, whatever we've got to
Mhm.
do to move forward.
Yeah, we'll go on a
Yeah.
break, we'll talk it out, and then we will just roll that shit back, if we figure out
Yeah,
that, oh, this can't be a
I
thing.
know on the other stream I'm on for Fist of the Ruby Phoenix, we have cards on a Roll20 thing that we can click on if we see something that we don't like. And that game is very lighthearted. It's not going to come up with a GM wanted to have it ready on the off chance that something popped up.
Yeah. No, I could see I could see in Cyberpunk for sure we might hit on stuff that could be like real dark at points, because that's just the nature of that world for sure. And then for the other 3 games, it just depends on where they go on their path.
Yeah,
So
like with Cyberpunk, you're almost always going to hit drugs and alcohol.
yeah, your drugs, alcohol, all sorts of like horrific death and
And I mean,
tragic
in some
backstories.
ways that someone hijacking your brain as a netrunner could be
Mhm.
considered really, really creepy to people.
Some people, yeah, sure. So, but there's I feel like that one has the potential to get dark really fast. The other games are all Kristen, Chad, and Maria's worlds. So it just depends on where they go with it. But like Maria, I don't know. I think she might surprise us, because she wailed on you guys in your first session 0 with that monster she whipped out. I was like, oh, she's not pulling punches. So
Yeah.
I'm
gotta
interested to
practice
see.
my Cajun accent and talking slow because I'm a goblin and I talk fast.
Yeah, slow down, Goblin. We need to give you some Xanax before you play.
But yeah, the joys of characters and things like that and interactions can sometimes lead places that you're not expecting, and those aren't always bad places. Sometimes they're like the best places for the story. Like in our game last night, I threw out a bar. Or not last night, Monday night. It's Wednesday.
It
Hey,
is. It's Wednesday.
I know time. But
Time's
on
never
our
relevant.
Monday
It's
stream,
not
I
linear.
threw out a bar, and it was just random bar. I pulled the name out of my hind end. Thanks, fantasy name generator.
Right? I always have one of those up in case I need a name for
And,
that.
so I named the bar Sparkle. So because of the name, it became a Fey bar.
I mean, it
I was
fits.
able to pull in some really fancy drinks that don't really exist in Pathfinder 2 because it's a drink. Who cares?
Yeah, make shit
And
up.
so, but they had some of the best character interactions there that I've seen. Like, one of my players dissected their food, and it was family meal, so it was like they were dissecting everyone's food because that's what she does, and you can see her reaction right now. But
It's like, okay, look.
but I also was able to, because we've all played together before, pull in some of their old characters as the bard troupe that was performing on stage. And they weren't prepared for that. It was really just a really cool interaction. It was a lamb that they were that they were able to interact with, and it was just a fun time, and they all got to enjoy it. And then we went to the darker spot later on, and it gave a brightness to the episode that I wasn't expecting to have, but it was a good thing.
Balance.
Right. Well, and like Friday night with Cyberpunk, Kat last minute, like first I planned for her not being there, and then she was, and then
Yeah, I
it was
last
a
minute
back-
had a family thing, so I wasn't there. And
so I had it as a peer-to-peer. There was another netrunner attacking her. And so she was like out of it. And that left Lobo to deal with the netrunner that was attacking her. And he was right by where he had just thrown a dead body into chum some water. So he wanted to throw a live person in and see how it worked.
yeah.
Well, I mean, that
I
is
had
his
to have
go-to
him
response.
roll- I had to have him roll to see if he would be cognizant enough to take the cyber deck off the arm of the netrunner before throwing him in. Because if he threw him in while he was still jacked in to obscure his brain, shit was gonna go bad.
But yeah, Lobo is an interesting character. The player does amazing character work with him. He's hilarious.
I love
But-
how he's done Lobo.
But it's weird because you'll hear Kat playing Obscura with no accent whatsoever, no affect to her voice, really.
Oh, I got reasons for that. I've got that. So, you know, I haven't said it on stream, but I'm sure that'll still be a surprise to some people. Is he went off to do his thing with your character's skeevy wife, and I, being the youngest of the family, was going through school. I focused on my education because I was still learning net running, but to more of the corporate side. And what happened is, in my education, I had a dialect coach who helped me get rid of my accent. But every once in a while, it may pop out. So,
I just like the dichotomy of it because
Yeah.
he's playing such a thick accent and you have none.
yeah, there's actually character backstory reason for it. So I made sure of that because I need to practice before I can even drop into the accent. Like I did it briefly in the first session. I mocked him with it just to try it. But I need to practice it and before I can really drop into it. And we've already decided that might be a trigger for him to like stop what he's doing, pay attention kind of thing, or maybe like we get into a deeper argument with it, something. So
Oh, one thing I like about voice work, and for me, I'm not great at voices. As we learned on my Monday stream, all ghosts sound the same. They're all depressed. But the Kay Cunning's character, she plays someone who's very haughty. And instead of changing her voice to be something that isn't her, she just plays up the haughtiness in her voice.
Mhm.
And so it just comes across like she doesn't use contractions. She uses longer words than she needs to. She says things that seem out of place.
yeah, sometimes it's just your vocal cadence and your word choices. You can change the whole like way that you sound it just in those kind of things, like
Yeah,
slow
and
down your
it's-
speech or something.
And that's one thing I will say to every GM, anybody who's wanting to GM, who's never GM'd, who has no ideas about GMing, don't worry about being the best voice actor you could ever be. Your players at your table don't care. They think it's cool if it happens, but they don't care if it doesn't.
Yeah, it's not that big
No
a
one's
deal.
expecting Jason Carl, Matt Mercer, Brennan Lee Mulligan for every table.
No,
Like I try to do, I've gotten a little bit better at for certain NPCs, like just changing certain things. Like on Monday, Cheeky Song, a Tabaxi hoarder basically came into play, and I got to be super hyper and jump and
yeah, you change like your speed of words and like your choice and things like that to or just like the pitch a little bit. It's not
Mhm.
like extreme, but it's enough to differentiate between your characters. And sometimes it's really all you need if you're going to do anything at all. Like if you
Yeah.
can't do voices, like I don't
Yeah.
know how well I'm going to be able to pull off a Romanian accent. I'm
I
not
thought they were
entirely-
Russian, so.
No, we're Romanian. We are Romanian. So, I mean, all those accents kind of blend unless you are a deep dialect person. So, to me, they all
Yeah.
kind of sound similar.
I mean, it sounds like the Bosnian people I work with too. So
Yeah, because they're all Eastern European. So, that accent, like, unless you've been, like, regionally experienced or dialect experienced or language experienced with each of the languages, you know, the layperson like us isn't really going to know the difference. So, I'm
Mhm.
hoping I can pass it off somehow. So, I just got to practice.
Yeah, and one other thing that I found when you're building your characters in games like Cyberpunk, another thing that you have to be careful of is representation to a degree and not overstepping a boundary.
yeah,
Like in our game where we had Cyberpunk, the character I was playing was a Native American, an indigenous person from from Oklahoma, but I built him off the tribe that my wife is a part of. It's like I have personal experience and cult and background with them because of who I'm married to. I am not one of those people. I probably wouldn't do that again because it
right.
was just a one-time thing. I wanted to experience it from her, like the POV,
Yeah.
so that I could have a little bit more
I mean,
life,
even
like
in
I could see
GM,
more from
I
her
try
eyes.
to avoid like describing, like I might throw out what nationality somebody is occasionally in Cyberpunk, but for the most part, I try and be like, well, maybe I'll get a little bit into skin tone, but I try not to like
Harp on it.
into anything cultural with it because I know
Yeah.
that there's a lot I don't know and I might cross a line without meaning to. So
Yeah.
See, I've
And
been cool with my character being Eastern European because like half of my heritage is like deeply Eastern European. So,
yeah, but
like
like that's one of the things with modern games is really it's the stumbling block to a lot of things is because if I say I want to make a character who has a little bit more swarthy complexion, I'm not swarthy at all. I'm very Anglo-Saxon European. It's like I'm obviously who I am, but I respect all the other cultures as well. But I don't want to subvert them either.
yeah.
I don't want to take that seat away from someone who would play that character better. So like if I was acting in a movie and they said, "Hey, you're gonna play this guy from Japan," I'm like, "I'm not Japanese."
yeah,
So no, I'm
no,
not.
no, my
Well,
characters
see,
are all
there's a lot of the blowback on certain voice actors who voiced characters that were of a different nationality or what have you. They weren't told until they'd already like voiced the part what nationality the character they were voicing is. And so like they got blowback on it and they're just like, I didn't know. It's not on me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the catch 22 is not knowing. And it's like culture changes. 10
Yeah.
years ago, I'd see no problem with it.
yeah.
And that's because one, I wasn't culturally informed by that. My best friend was like, it's cool, I don't care. And he was a 6'1" black guy. I'm like, if he says it's cool, it must be cool. Well,
Yeah.
he didn't care. That didn't mean that everyone didn't care.
Yeah.
So in your private home game, if whoever you're with is cool with it, you can play it off. But even then, I wouldn't these days. But you can't do that on a stream. You can't roll up
Yeah.
being white as this and say I am a African American character. That is so fucked up.
Yes, totally.
So all of my characters, they're gonna be white because I'm white, unless it's like some sort of like
I'm green
alien
because I'm an
or
orc.
I'm green or my skin is blue because that's the race of people I'm playing. If it's something that's not actually like a
Yeah,
real type of culture, and even then it would still be I'm whatever that is, the orc, whatever. I'm not going to try and use some other cultural like stereotype trope to try and play
yeah,
that character either, because I've seen people
yeah.
do that. Like they'll play orcs like
Indigenous
thugs
people.
of the African American type that are the cliche that really like is shitty, and it's like you can't do that. You're a
No.
white guy. Stop,
Well, they
Right.
played as indigenous people or things like that as well.
Yeah, the
One thing
indigenous
I've learned
tropes and
from
stuff too.
being a GM and everything is like sometimes I do have to toe a line that is, you know, there are these people in the world, but like in one of our home games, it's called
Gosh.
Quest for the Frozen Flame. Is
Mhm.
the action adventure path we're running, or my friend's running for us.
No.
Uh,
1 second.
what they what they do there is they make allow you to be from anywhere to join this tribe that's traversing the frozen tundra. It's not an orc tribe. It's not an indigenous people tribe. It's not a, you know, a, any type of being tribe. It's these are the people who are in the tundra. You have escaped there, and you are now in their tribe.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Mhm.
situationally you can make some sort of nomadic tribe so that you're not traipsing on that, and you can change the settings so you're not in, someone's indigenous lands. You're not traipsing
Yeah.
through the tundras of Alaska,
No.
on the indigenous lands of those people. You're in some fantasy world, and these are the people that live in the tundra. And
Yeah.
In Artena, I do have some kobold and orc only tribes that wander around, but it's specifically because of like gods they follow or whatnot, and it's family units.
yeah,
And so I haven't really touched on them a whole lot. Uh, I'm not sure they'll even come up in the current game we're playing because none of them are anywhere near where they currently are, and they have shown no interest in leaving Belmoral yet.
you're gonna have to force their asses out of Belmoral. They
Yeah.
especially fucking, fuckboy wizard there. He is perfectly happy to sit there and drink and occasionally throw fireballs out the window or whatever the hell he did that one day.
But talking, like, kind of twisting this on its head is to also take some of those normal tropes. Like halflings are normally thieves because they're very dexterous. No, my halfling wears full plate armor and carries a great sword. He's a
Oh, I love
paladin.
that. I love that shit. I love that shit. I read this whole thing, and I can't remember where I read it or like what it was, but it was like someone like, why can't orcs have feelings? Why do orcs have to be like these low intelligence, like,
Yeah.
it's because a lot of the old way of thinking and the old subculture of TTRPG that is slowly, hopefully, dying out was orcs are rapists and thieves and plunderers
Yeah.
and and someone's like, why do they have to be that?
Yeah.
It's like they can be
Like,
some
why can't
sort
you be
of
half
other thing,
anything?
you
Why
know
does that be
Right.
half orc? But like one of the other tropes that's been flipped on its head for characters that I've watched and played with is done by Jason in chat. He plays an elvish rogue. He plays the best coward I've ever seen played. It's the bravest coward kind of trope. It's very flipped on its head because you usually think of elves as regal and noble, and he walks around regal and noble until danger happens.
Well, in Maria's game, we haven't been introduced to this character, but Allison is playing Brasco, who her orc is a thirst trap. Like the way that this orc was drawn, like, and he's 7 foot tall and just like a rather attractive orc. And it's like orcs aren't supposed to be attractive either, according to the old trope. So or a good guy, So it's cool. I like it when people subvert those RPG tropes too, because like some of them aren't right anyway. Some of them are really fucked up, and you can tell where they're going with it with the way that they've tried to set that race of people. It's like, I know what you're doing there. I see what you're doing, and I don't like it. And we're not going to do it today.
Yeah, no, and like I said, there are some tropes that I lean into. Some tropes I like to flip on their head. Like, for one of my VTM characters, he's a punchy Tremere. He doesn't know how to do blood magic. He was trying to be a bodyguard because they were tired of paying Bruja.
I mean, that's kind of cool, actually.
And they're like, no, we're not teaching you blood magic. You're stupid.
Basically, they turned Lobo. Is what you're saying.
Exactly. It's like a big dumb guy with big punchy fist. And he's not even great at punching. He's good at punching. He can't take one to save his own life.
So he's mediocre at best.
But compared to a normal Tremere, he's like amazing.
Well, yeah, because Tremeres are very squishy.
But yeah, so that's one of those things. But for my bard in our Pathfinder 2 play by post server, he is prototypical bard's bard. Girl in every town, sometimes a guy in the other towns. Who knows? He doesn't care. Was it a dragon? I don't know. Maybe.
Honestly, I think one of the funnest tropes to play into is a human bard, and then you have a whole bunch of half race children. Like, this one's a half orc, this one's a half elf, this one is.
Child support payments are out of control.
He was actually an elven bard because that's the trope that's always in my head, is the elven bard. So he was the elven bard who got kicked out of Bard College for hitting on professors, and then ran out of the same town for hitting on someone else by at crossbow point. That was his origin story. And I built on it from there, but that was the gist of it. He got kicked out of college and kicked out of town at crossbow point.
See, I always picture like Jaskier from The Witcher. That's my whole TTRPG life, or even anything with a bard. My whole last life. That's always what I pictured. So when the show came on and they portrayed him like that, I'm like, yes, that is the bard that I've always had in mind.
The other fun thing is his name is my character's name is a pun, and it took over a year for one of our other GMs to catch it.
What's the pun?
So his name is Zilfleck Ben, and it's just an anagram, a little bit of a modified anagram of Ben Affleck.
Oh shit! I'd have to see that in writing because I'm not good with anagrams. That's
Yeah,
fucking great.
it's not perfect, but it's so close. It's just like one day she came up to me in chat. She's like, "Please tell me I'm not reading this right. Did you really?" I'm like, "Yes, I did." She's like, "How do you know what I'm talking about?" I'm like, "I just know."
That's great.
But yeah, so we have there's a lot of fun things you can play around with, and there's things that you can homebrew that have no mechanical effect, which is always the more fun for me, because mechanics to me are not necessarily set in stone. Like, yes, you can swing from the chandelier. I don't care, whatever. It's cool. Have fun. But the homebrews that have no mechanical effect but give them agency over their character and their story matters so much more. Like, yes, you can be a mushroom kombucha dealer who puts zombie bits in drinks at the bar and has people try them. I don't care.
Yeah, there
Makes
are
me think of
things
the
that are,
nose jar from freaking
oh yeah, the nose jar. Oh, it's so gross. Yeah, I always say there are things that inform RP and there are things that inform gameplay. Some of those intertwine, but the things that give you flavor are those useless things, and I love that shit because it gives your character depth. Like,
Yeah.
Did you need to know Obscura had a dialect coach and that's why she talks normal? No, it just could be a thing that we're never going to address, but it's there and it'll come up. I came up with
Yeah.
that for flavor, and there's different things. There's other things I have in mind for her that'll pop out later too.
I also love when your character choices, like your mechanical character choices, are informed by your role play.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
in this bard's case, he is a celebrity as his archetype, which is one of the rule mechanics from Pathfinder 2, and it lets him be known for being a celebrity, so he can make more money because he's well known. But he's also some of his other choices have been informed because he got kidnapped, he got tortured, he had damage to him. It took weeks to heal his hands, so he couldn't play music for a while. So he learned how to write music and write stories, and it's led to more of his growth as a character, more than just mechanically. He now knows how to write stories.
Yeah.
There's a reason. There's always got to be a reason. So and we were talking about this too, because when I got to a certain amount of IP in Cyberpunk, I multi-classed over into tech. So, we had to have, we were talking about, she's like, well, when people do that, they have to have a reason, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I have one. My brother is full of cyberware and likes to hit things, and sometimes they hit back. So I learned from various places along the way as I was training
How
on
to jerry rig.
tech, so I could fix him. And then so when we went down into Ignotus and he landed bad, I pulled out my tech stuff and threw it on and then fixed him,
Yeah, jury is a great skill for that. I wouldn't say that all the skills in Cyberpunk lend to that kind of story arc, but jury is such a skill that just makes sense as a RP extra.
Well, one of the big things I think TTRPGs in general, but Cyberpunk specific, is their jobs. You're gonna change jobs. You can have multiple jobs, and then you go to this one, and then this fits you better now, so you go back to this one. It's not like you lose those. So I see multi-classing as kind of like you can jump back into an old job, you can learn a new job, just giving a good reason why you would know it.
So, and I associated that, we were talking about that too, and I was like, oh, so like me, because I did graphic design for decades, went into healthcare, and now I'm doing graphic design again while I'm not working in healthcare. I've already multi-classed in real life, so whatever. But in Cyberpunk 2, being in the more modern world, multi-classing and taking on different jobs makes more sense because that's what people do in the modern world. In a more
Yeah.
fantasy world, some people they farm for the rest of their life. They're an alchemist for their whole ass life. It's a little
Yeah.
different,
Yeah.
setting too. But you can still justify it even in that world.
Yeah, no,
For
and
sure.
like the thief wanting to get who decided to go lift weights.
Yeah.
Why do you lift weights? Because I hate getting hit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now
I
I
want to wear
can.
heaver stuff.
Yeah.
I
I
also
have more
do
strength now. I
enjoy
learned how to
like the
fight.
I know that it's like one of the crunchier parts of D&D, and like when we were talking about this, Kat was like, yeah, because it's more of a you're both these things if you multi-class in D&D, and I'm like, well, and that's what feats are for, so that you have these other things that you can learn, and then it's just amplifying things about your character. And she's like, it's just too much to read.
Yeah,
So that
sometimes it can be too complicated. It's like I just want to multi-class. I'm a wizard, but I want to multi-class and learn some healing because our healer died. You
so
know?
that's one of the best things that I found in Pathfinder 2 is how they did multi-class. You don't multi-class. You can dual class. It's a variant rule, but nobody ever uses it. But what you do instead is at second level, you can get what's called an archetype feat. That archetype feat might be, say you're a fighter, your archetype feat might be wizard. I want to learn how to cast magic missile because I'm tired of having to run it every single time. Things like that. And it allows you to be two things at once,
Hmm.
but it forces you to make hard choices. Do I want to level up my wizard side more? Did he hit the books this time, or did I take that feat that lets me hit harder?
Yeah. And with the cyberpunk multi-classing, you do have to make those choices too. Like I couldn't take that unless I was level 4 netrunner, which I already was. So I'm like level 1 in tech. Now I have all of these other skills. Now it's like, all right, so do I want to upgrade the skills that feed into this or this? Because I also, the way I built my character out is I like really like just milked everything I could out of the points I had to have like sets of skills because I knew as a netrunner I was going to be squishy. So I added a bunch of like fighting and handgun skills. So outside of the net, I wasn't going to die in a fight. So now like my fighter netrunner also has these tech skills. So I'm going to have to make these choices because IP, you don't necessarily get a huge wealth of it at the end of the session. So I have to kind of like, okay, do I want to add another level in a whole new thing, or do I want to save these and level some of the other skills I have? So then that's
Yeah.
you still have those hard choices. There's no like quick path in any way, shape,
No,
or form.
no, not in Cyberpunk, not in Pathfinder 2. You always have to make hard choices. 5e, I found it's a little bit easier to make. You don't have to make as hard of choices because once you hit certain beats along your character path, you get certain skills. If you're switching between classes, that's the only really
Yeah.
complicated thing is which one do I take when?
Yeah, it's like with Candy, because we started at level 8 for the game, and she had 4 levels in both wizard and sorcerer. And then when we finally came time to level up, I was dead set on wizard like the whole entire game, and then one bit of RP completely changed where she was going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and with D&D, I found with how multi-classing works, sometimes it's best to de-optimize for
Yeah.
story. Because if you optimize, like if you everyone's can optimize, everyone can play a sorcerer, paladin, warlock, because those three things synergize really well. All charisma-based casters, all stack on each other, all your bonuses stack. You can be silly powerful for no reason. But if you're optimizing for story, you might be that weird bard fighter hybrid
Mm-hmm.
because you got in a lot of bar fights when you were singing.
I played one of my favorite characters I've ever made was a kobold named Click Clack, who
Fucking
started
click
out as a
clack.
warlock and then learned how to be a barbarian from bardbarians. And so they thought that singing helped them fight. So they would sing really badly as they fought for no reason.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Is like sometimes you want to take the what is considered a suboptimal choice
Yeah.
to make a better character, and min-maxing learning min-maxing can help you to find what those suboptimal choices are and how they can make you a better character. Like Percival, the one that Jason was talking about that he plays, he's made some amazing character decisions. He's got a lot of his feats and archetypes are tied into things that make his character fit better into what he sees the character as, and not necessarily like, I'm the best cowardly rogue I can be. No, it's like he's also this guy who runs in to save his friends randomly because he, it's like he's the bravest coward I've ever seen. That's what he is, It's like
Yeah, that's
he will
the
run in the
whole
middle
thing
of
with pretty
everything.
much, yeah, pretty much any TTRPG is people are going to spend more time on, oh, what can I do, rather than who I am. Like, yeah, there's backstory and stuff, but fill out the flaws, fill out the bonds, make your character well-rounded and use that.
I will say, if you hand me a first level character with 18 pages of backstory, I'm probably not going to read it because no, they didn't.
It depends on what kind of backstory, though, because a lot of it can be where it's, nothing brave and nothing like they ran, they did this.
It's like I defeated
I never
18
go farther
dragons.
than
I'm
like 3 or 4 pages, but
and they're like, unless the last line is, and then I got amnesia. It's like,
it depends on the content of that 18-page backstory. If it's like 18 pages of their amazing feats as a paladin, warlock, sorcerer, yeah, bullshit, level 1. But if it's like, where they've been and experiences they've had that inform who they are as a character, that's a different backstory, because that's obscure backstories.
Also, I'll probably reference it but not read it at that point.
Yeah, you can use it as you go for things to like bring into the story for them, or like, Tim and I writing our backstory for a character inadvertently gave her all of this shit to use against us with you and DK soon when she comes in. So
yeah, no, and also it depends on what level you start at. Like if you start at level 10, I kind of want more backstory because I need to know where did you come from, what did you do, how did you get to 10th level?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and like starting at level 8, with DK's game, we actually spent a solid 6 weeks before we ever even started reading documents about NPCs and like talking to each other as our characters and developing, because they're people that would have known each other their entire lives. And so we fully dove into DK's idea and just like dug in. And we all say, you can pry this from my cold dead hands.
Yeah, so Tim and I did a lot of that beforehand too with our character stories. Like we were like, hey, we have all of this, because we had been talking about, because he approached me when we both signed on for the game and he's like, hey, I have an idea, and I was like, okay. So
Danny just said, oh my god, Kat, you look so different. You have you in Dawn's spot and Dawn in your spot.
Oh shit, it's been on my whole stream.
It's fine, I'll play Obscura next week.
Oh look.
No, so for me though, the fun one for us was Fist of the Ruby Phoenix is one of that starts at higher level. It starts at level 10. 2 of us knew each other. 2. And each of us knew at least one of the others tangentially, but not like we didn't really know them. We had maybe adventured with them once upon a time for a short one shot, but like the 2 of us who knew each other, we met at a bar and we Ocean's 11'd our team together. We're like, well, what about that guy we met that's kind of like a shadowy dude who's a fight, whose sword has a dog. Want to get him? Yeah, we should get him. And that's how we hired one guy. And then yeah, didn't you know a juggling lady that was really angry once? Yeah, I knew her. We should get her too. Maybe she can be angry again. And then it's like, oh, and that other guy, the last one, oh, he's in jail. It's like, we should probably go break him out. So our first adventure on stream was breaking our friend out of jail.
Nice. We played a game together. We play tested a game a while back, and one of myself and one of the other guys in the chat for that went on a tangent, and RP is our characters. She woke up and I'm like, I'm sorry, I was on my bullshit this morning, just so you know. And then she went through and read all of this, and we were just like on it for like, I think we went at it for like an hour, and it ended up that
suddenly they end up in a convent.
Yeah, I think you had other ideas for starting or whatever. We were in a convent. I made him wear a nun's habit, and we were hiding out there. So that's how we started the game. And so sometimes that stuff just happens like of its own accord too. So that's cool.
Yeah, and that's most of how most of my BTM characters backstory happens is because I don't really write one. I make the character, I'm like, huh, this would be an interesting concept. I get the concept, but I don't have the backstory. I'm like, here's what I think they are. And
Yeah.
then I play them to find out if I'm right.
And that's usually how I go about it. This with Obscura is the first time I've actually had like a bigger backstory with a lot of meat to it, going into a game. And I'm still like developing little pieces. Like I have all sorts of little things here and there. It'll come out over time that I've thought of. But this is like the most like backstory fleshed out character that I've ever had. So usually I just show up and
Yeah.
I'm like, this is my character. Let's see where she goes.
So for me, I like it because I can yes and back at the GM. Like, but did you, as your bard, have sex with your best friend's mom before your best friend was your best friend? Yes, and it went badly. And no, I am not their parent. Because my bard's an elf, he's older. It's like he's 129 years old. He could have been, but he wasn't. We
Well,
made that determination. He was not.
so, you know, speaking of horny bards, I'm actually excited for the all horny
The
warlocks
Horlock
game, the
game.
Horlocks.
Yes, that will be a
Because-
fun game. I actually, I gave Kristen a mild teaser for that game.
Mhm.
The name of the game will be Lock Around the Block.
Locked around the block.
Yes,
Interesting. Okay.
yes, it will be fun. Make whatever you'd like from whoever's going to be playing in that game. Make whatever you want. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm excited because it's like you know I've had a bunch of different characters, but this will be like the way I'm thinking of my character is going to be opposite of like most of the stuff I've played. So I have
Yeah.
ideas. So I'm excited
Oh,
for that.
don't
I
worry.
didn't go as deep into backstory for like one shots and stuff, but I have the baby got backstories shirt because I love a good backstory and like I want to know the motivations and the reasons and
Oh yeah, I actually specifically designed this because this story because I know it is going to drive the players crazy, but they're going to love it.
I'm
it's
just
gonna be a
excited to
crazy
play
game.
something like fun and silly. You know.
Yeah, like, and honestly, if y'all end up rolling dice, I might have failed.
I mean, that's all right too. Yeah.
Sometimes
yeah, no,
it's great to just have story.
Yeah, and especially for like a one shot. But if it was to lead into something more from there, it would be a matter of who wants to
I also think
continue.
we have something like 8 people that are like, yes, I'm playing this. So
I'm good. It's on whoever's producing it to get it all on stream, not me.
We're not playing on our channel, so I don't have to do it this time. So that'll actually kind of be a treat for me to play on someone else's channel and like have
Just
the full
play.
we'll have the full player experience because even when I play, I'm still producing it on this channel. So that I think that's for me gonna be super cool because I haven't guessed it on anybody else's channel yet. So there'll be a first time. So I'm
So I
excited for
have
that
run
too.
streams a couple of times for myself, but I ran it on a friend's channel, but I just had her key and just kind of, it was hastily put together in OBS, nothing fancy.
Mhm.
But most of the time, I'm just a guest or just a player or I have a producer. Because I find that as a GM producing your own content, some people can pull it off very, very well. And other times it can lead to tech catastrophe.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's like, it's best to have someone else.
those, but she's getting better. It's definitely a learning process when you're both running the game and running the game.
And I think having a producer is always, if possible, the preferred option. It's not always possible.
Right,
See,
yeah. Well, and it was funny because both Kat and I were trying to not impose on the other when I had the idea to start the channel. And it was all like, oh, she could probably do this a whole lot better than me, but I know she's really busy. I don't want to impose on her. And
So what happened was we got drunk one weekend and she was promoting Immortal the first session and I saw the graphics she made and I was like, no, I can't let her do this. I can't in good conscience let her roll with this. And I mean, I understand she did her best with what she had available to her and not having done that, but I was just like, I can't, as a good friend. This is like letting someone go with lipstick on their teeth or like their underwear outside of their pants. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I have the skills. I did this for a whole ass career before.
Yeah.
So I was
Your
like,
font choices matter.
I'm like, it was like blue and the font like was blending in color, and I was like, let me help you. I can help you. Let me do the things so that it looks
Yeah.
pretty.
I will say, like, I will slap together something really quickly for myself, but generally speaking, I let professionals do professional work. And my wife has a graphic design minor, so if I need something that is something up her alley, I let her do it. If it's not, I call people who I know.
That's
And
fair.
I'm like, I'm not a graphic designer. I don't claim to be. I have taken 2 courses on it, but I am not one.
Yeah, and when that's like, you know, the
Yeah, and
tech
I
stuff.
didn't. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
ahead.
like the tech stuff, you know, I've as I've learned it, because when we came into this, I had a week to switch from using primarily Photoshop, which I used to use for all of my graphic design, to switching to learning Adobe Illustrator and OBS and coordinate with Zoom and the Stream Deck. I had a week. So
Yeah. Choosing Zoom was a good choice as a tech person. Like, yes, it has security flaws and everything, but as a stream software, bar none. It does so much better than other choices.
it does, and it drives me nuts because the way it feeds into OBS pisses me off because it is so like antiquated, and it's like it should not be this way. It should not be this dumb window capture thing where if somebody drops it shuffles and all it, but in terms of stability and everything from everything that I've done in my research, it's way better, you know. So
The pin feature now works from what I understand. So if you have people come on stream, you can pin them in place where they are. And so it's when drops, they don't go away.
I'll have to look at it because the last time I checked, none of that shit worked. So
Yeah. It depends on, I'm not sure exactly what level of cost that is, but I think that you
But
can
and
still
you
pin.
know, and
Oh, no.
OBS is still better than
There is an option.
Twitch's actual thing to use. Like I first was going to use Twitch Studio, and Cat did
Big.
something.
No, because I think it depends on your level, but they do allow pinning at some level. I can't remember what level it is, but now I'm Kristen. I will GM.
yeah, and then now I can't unpin it.
Playing with it on
Very
stream.
big.
You know what? I already had Don sitting in the wrong box, so hell with it. You know, it's even stream.
It's fine. Who cares?
And I was curious if it actually did the thing or if it fucked it up, so I wanted to see how that went.
Is this chaos or not?
Exactly. It
Always.
is part of our base build of this
Brand.
channel is chaos, so fuck it.
Yeah, so, but my biggest thing though, I know that I've talked to other producer types. I've talked to people from Roll the Roll, people from Q Times. Jake from Q Times uses Google Meet and opens up a separate window for each person. So if they drop, it doesn't affect anything else. That's how he does it. But he's like, I also have a beefy machine that can handle it, and it's not the best way to do anything.
Yeah, my machine can handle a lot now, especially with the upgrades that I made to it. So like, and even before I made the upgrades, it like has cruised fine. The only thing I couldn't do as well as running a show was run like Illustrator and work in the background, and now I can. But otherwise, it's been fine with broadcasting. I hate the window capture feature between OBS and Zoom. It makes me so like angry. It's like there's better ways to do this.
But yeah, so I know that for Google Meet, he opens up an individual Chrome window for each person in it. So he's like, yeah, it sucks resources down. He's like, it's not the primary, but the best way to do things, but it works for him. And then I have other friends who run it all in Discord with just one standard window. The overlay doesn't have their names on it. The names are on the bottom, and it's background, and it's a game, and there's a map, and you roll dice, and it's fun, and who cares?
Yeah, I looked at Discord for like half a second. I was like, nah, no, not today. You know. I went with the OBS Zoom option. It's been better. Overall, as annoying as the window capture thing is, it's fine. So
the reason that she was using Discord was because she was like, this is a quick and dirty game stream because not everybody's gonna have their camera on. People drop regularly.
Oh, yeah, that's different.
Sometimes people pop in randomly. The only reason we're really streaming is so people would stop popping in our games and talking over the game.
Oh yeah, that's fucking annoying.
We're like, how about this? We'll stream it. Y'all can watch it, but please don't pop into the game channel and listen because you're not gonna just listen. You always want to talk.
Yeah, you also make that channel private so they can't.
Well, the problem was because of how the game system was. It's like sometimes we needed people to pop in late and join the game because we're about to die.
Well, I mean, there's always different reasons for why people do things certain ways, so I get it.
Yeah,
You know, and I've
but,
looked at other options for doing the video feeds, but right now everything is still kind of rudimentary or expensive. So
yeah.
right now, this is how we're gonna do it.
I
You
don't
can figure it
understand
out.
Stream Decks, so I get it. Like, I know they have a purpose. I don't know what that purpose is.
So I can push buttons over here without having to open OBS and try to do things. Plus, I can send out tweets while we're sitting here. Like I've sent out 3 tweets during the course of this stream.
Oh, okay.
You know, saying live soon, live now,
Yeah.
saying we're on the stream. Like I have probably 6 or 7 different tweet buttons for the games that I will pop on throughout
Yeah.
the stream.
Which I completely missed on Friday when I was running the Cyberpunk stream because I was so into telling the story I completely forgot.
Which is why having a producer is an amazing thing.
Yep.
If it is something you can pull off, get a producer.
Because like I have a list up here above my monitor, my center monitor of like what like 1 through 8 of when to push the buttons throughout the shows. And then I have post-it notes with other shit around here too. But the Stream Deck is cool for that because I can just like I don't have to go type a fucking tweet or schedule a tweet. I can just push a button and it goes.
I got the Stream Deck before we even streamed once. I was like, this is gonna be handy. I'm getting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I've not been a producer or runner of a stream long enough to have it be a bother. You know,
Yeah.
for me, it's not like,
It's different
I-
purposes though too, because I do all of our marketing and social media too. So I want to keep that flowing because that's how you get engagement is to keep yourself in front of people.
yeah. And I know that when I was working at one of the clients I worked for, one of their music directors had a stream deck and he used it for music production, for
Yeah.
writing, not music production, like not like audio stuff. He was writing music and using it in the music writing software.
Yeah, it's got options for all that stuff too. Like it's not just for streaming. It has like there's all sorts of programs that you can like attach to it other than OBS, and it's got all sorts of like plugins. It's actually like it's cool for a lot of things. You know,
Oh yeah.
gamers use them. I think I've seen, and so I mean it has plenty of things you can do with it. For us, it's the the aspect of I can push buttons to change between the scenes on the actual stream and then tweet stuff and not have to worry about stuff. And when I was running my game, it was super handy that way too, because I was able to just be like, I look at my script and like, okay, it's time for a break. Boop, or oh hey, it's I've been babbling for 10 minutes. I'm gonna push this player button so we can hype the players. So
Yeah, it's a little like I get so like consumed into the story. I definitely don't look at it.
yeah, see, I multitask, so I when I'm playing or when I ran the one game, it's like, yeah, no, I know this has got to happen, but I before I ran the game, even I had already done the playing and the producing at the same
he
time.
froze.
Oh no.
Like I want him to get back so we can at least do the
Yeah,
out.
yeah, we do. We've gone for an hour and a half. It's awesome. So I appreciate everybody that's hung out and listened to us just babble about gaming. So it's been cool. He's stuck though. Oh, he dropped. We're about to shuffle. Oh, look, it's just me in the center. Oh, this is awkward. Like, what am I gonna do now? Well,
Dance.
huh?
I said dance.
I don't dance. What the fuck am I gonna dance for? Yeah, it's not even showing your hands. Like, I don't even know what's going on. Oh, did I pin you? Oh, I pinned you. There we go. Let me move you around. They can stare at you for a minute. Nope, it's just not gonna, nope, fuck it. You're all stuck looking at me right now. Congratulations. Just what you always never wanted, I'm sure. So
We'll give him a second to see if he jumps back in, and if not, we'll wrap it up.
yeah, I mean, at this point, yeah, I don't even
of tech issues.
well, it's not really tech issues we dropped, and I don't
Well, tech on his end, because
Oh.
tech issues can also be.
yes, indeed, Jason, it is chaos. That is the way of things.
I think we should just end it and we'll say, hey, go check out Don Von Donlin on Twitter. I will actually type this out again because I did not make a command.
And since I'm the one that is basically God over here right now in the center of the screen, I'll list out what we've got going this week. How's that?
Okay.
All right. So for the rest of this week, tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific, you can tune into our channel for At the Threshold. Our DM and friend Chad runs that game. It's a City of Arches D&D 5e homebrew. The story is fantastic. Everybody's having a good time. So tune in for that. Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific will be Somnum Exterrae, which is the game that I play in as Obscura. If I have not said that enough throughout the stream, that is what we're doing. That is run by Kristen here, who you cannot see, but she does run that game. And that'll be it for the week. And then Monday, we are actually off for mid-season break for Madness Takes Artena, which is the other game that Kristen runs. At the Threshold, we'll be on mid-season break, and so will Somnum Exterrae. So we won't have any programming until Tuesday at 1 p.m. for Maria with her Watercolor Wizardry show. She does live art on stream. She just finished painting all of the characters for her campaign. That is at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time on Tuesday as well, which is Misguided Magic. It will be the second of the one-shot episodes where we have the other three characters from the story come together to show how they got together and how they all come together to start the full story on August 2nd. And then Wednesday will be 6 p.m. Pacific for Chaos Curiosities, where Kristen, who you cannot see anymore, talks about TTRPG world building and character building and whatever else she's going to come up with. She has not told me her subject for next week, so we're going to figure that out.
Do I have a subject? I'll come up with one.
We'll make some shit up. That's how we roll.
I will
We saw
make
your
it-
elbows for that.
I'll have something better than the word salad. That's
You did pretty good with that word salad. You went on for almost an hour with that. So,
my brain was buffering so bad.
yeah, that's all right. So, we thank all of you for coming out and listening to us talk about TTRPGs. I had a great time. I am sorry that Don dropped, but we thank him for coming. And Kristen and her jazz hands and myself and my person are going to sign off for the night. Thanks for coming.
Bye.